students, welcome to today's session. Lesson 15, Normative Media Theories, Libertarian Theory. Introduction. Libertarian media theory, also known as libertarian philosophy of the media, is a normative theory that outlines the role of media within the framework of libertarianism. It is rooted in classic liberal thought and has its foundation in the works of philosophers like John Locke, Adam Smith and others. This theory is grounded in the broader libertarian political philosophy, emphasizing individual liberty, limited government intervention and free markets. Objectives of this lesson: examine and elucidate the foundational principles of libertarian theory. Evaluate the practical application of libertarian principles in the media landscape, considering the impact on freedom of expression, limited government intervention and the role of free markets. Investigate the relevance and implications of libertarian theory in the digital age, focusing on its alignment with concepts such as digital freedom, decentralization, open source collaboration and voluntary transactions. Understanding the effectiveness and challenges of this theory. Key aspects of libertarian theory. The core principles of this theory typically revolve around the protection of individual rights, voluntary exchange and the rule of law. Here are the key aspects of libertarian theory. The first point is individual liberty. Libertarians place a high value on individual freedom and autonomy. They argue that individuals have the right to live their lives and they choose, free from coercion or interference as long as they do not infringe upon the rights of others. Self-ownership. Libertarians often assert the concept of self-ownership, arguing that individuals have the right to control their bodies, lives and property. The idea serves as a basis for main libertarian principles, including the right to private property. Private property rights. Libertarians advocate for strong property rights, contending that the right to acquire, use and exchange property is fundamental to individual liberty. They argue that well-defined property rights lead to better resource allocation and incentivize responsible use of resources. Free markets. The theory supports a free market approach to media, emphasizing minimal governmental intervention in the media industry. It contends that marketplace should determine the structure, content and operation of media outlets. Libertarians believe that competition in media industry driven by consumer choices will lead to a diverse range of media outlets catering to various preferences and perspectives. Limited government intervention. Libertarians advocate for a minimal state with government limited to protecting individual rights and maintaining public order. They argue that government should not engage in activities beyond protection of life, liberty and property, and the excessive government power can lead to abuse and infringement of individual freedoms. Rule of law. Libertarians emphasize the importance of the rule of law, which means that laws should be clear, consistent and apply equally to all individuals. The principle is seen as the safeguard against arbitrary government actions and ensures a fair and just legal system. Media as marketplace of ideas. The theory sees media as marketplace of ideas where diverse opinions and perspectives compete freely. It emphasizes the importance of open dialogue and the free flow of information for healthy democratic society. In a libertarian media landscape, ideas are expected to compete in marketplace based on their merit and individuals are trusted to make informed decisions about the information they consume. Decentralization. Libertarians often favor decentralized structures in various aspects of society, and this extends to media as well. They argue that a decentralized media landscape with a multitude of independent sources is more likely to reflect diverse perspectives and avoid concentration of power. Decentralization is seen as a safeguard against the potential for single power entity, a government, to control and manipulate information. Voluntary interactions. Libertarian media theory is consistent with the broader libertarian emphasis on voluntary interactions. It argues that media transactions, including advertising, subscriptions, and content creation, should be based on voluntary exchanges between willing parties. Libertarians contend that individuals should have the freedom to support media outlets of their choice and that these outlets should not be forced to conform to any particular narrative or agenda. It's important to note that while libertarian media theory promotes the ideals of free expression, individual liberty, and decentralized media landscape, critics argue that it may not adequately address issues related to media concentration, corporate influence, and potential inequalities in access to information. Additionally, the practical implementation of libertarian media principles can vary, and real-world media systems often involve a mix of public and private influences. Libertarian theory and media. Freedom of expression. Libertarian media theory places a strong emphasis on the freedom of expression as fundamental right. It argues that individuals and media organizations should have the right to express their opinions and ideas without government interference. For example, in countries with a strong commitment to libertarian principles, there may be legal protection ensuring freedom of press, allowing media outlets to report on a wide range of issues without fear of censorship. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution is often cited as an example of legal protection for freedom of expression. Limited government intervention. Libertarian media theory advocates for minimal government intervention in media landscape. This means limited regulations, licensing requirements, and censorship to allow a free flow of information. An example is the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which while regulating the telecom sector, generally allows a level of autonomy for media outlets. Free market principles. Libertarians believe that a free market approach to media leads to a diverse range of outlets that cater to different tastes and perspectives. Competition in the marketplace is seen as essential for ensuring a variety of voices and ideas. In Indian scenario, India's media industry operates within a free market framework with various private players and competition driving the diversity of content. The entry of foreign media companies and the rise of digital platforms further reflect a market-oriented approach. The proliferation of the online media outlets and platforms exemplifies a more libertarian approach to media. Blogs, podcasts, and independent news websites can reach audience without traditional gatekeeping of mainstream media. This decentralization is viewed as a positive outcome of free market media environment. Decentralization and diversity. Libertarians argue that a decentralized media landscape with a multitude of independent sources is more likely to reflect diverse perspectives and avoid concentration of power. In India, vast and diverse population contributes to a decentralized media landscape. Different regions and linguistic groups have their own media outlets catering to local interests. For example, regional news channels, newspapers in various languages, and community radio stations exemplify the decentralized nature of media in India, aligning with libertarian notion of diverse and independent sources. Voluntary transactions and subscription. Libertarians believe that media transactions, including advertising, subscriptions and content creation should be based on voluntary exchanges between willing parties. In the Indian media scenario, there is a growing trend of subscription based models, with consumers choosing to pay for content they find valuable. This aligns with the libertarian idea of voluntary transactions between media organizations and the audience. Example, the subscription model for media outlets such as newspapers or streaming services is an example of a voluntary transaction. Individuals choose to pay for content they value, and media organizations rely on market demand rather than government subsidies. In conclusion, it can be said that libertarian principles can be applied to the media. It's important to note that the real world media landscape often involves a mix of influences, and no system perfectly adheres to single theoretical framework. Critics of libertarian media theory argue that it may not adequately address issues of media concentration, assess inequalities, and the potential for corporate influence. Applying libertarian theory to daily life. Respect for individual freedom means allowing others to make personal choices without interference. In daily life, this may involve supporting others' decision, even if they differ from your own, whether it is lifestyle choices, career paths, or personal relationships. Acknowledge and respect the property rights of individuals. This extends beyond physical possessions to intellectual property. Respecting someone's ideas, creative works, or personal space aligns with libertarian principles. Embrace the concept of voluntary exchanges in your daily interactions. Support businesses and services based on your preferences, and engage in interactions that are mutually beneficiary. This aligns with the idea that individuals should freely choose their economic activities. Actively participate in local communities and support decentralized initiatives. This might involve engaging in local governance, supporting community projects, or participating in grassroots movements, reflecting the idea that decisions are often best made at the local level. Advocate for privacy rights and take personal responsibility for your actions. In the age of digital communication, being mindful of privacy concerns aligns with libertarian principles. Additionally, taking responsibility for your choices promotes self-reliance. Encourage open dialogue and diverse perspectives. In conversations, respect others' right to express their opinion, even if they differ from your own. Create an environment where the free exchange of ideas is valued. Apply the principle of limited government intervention to personal matters. This might involve advocating for policies that protect personal freedoms and privacy, both online and offline. Foster an entrepreneur mindset by supporting innovation and creativity. Whether it is your career or personal projects, embracing new ideas and contributing to innovation aligns with libertarian values. Engage in voluntary charitable activities. Contributing to causes you believe in through voluntary giving rather than mandatory taxation aligns with the libertarian emphasis on voluntary actions. Consider the ethical implication of your decisions. Just as libertarian theory emphasizes the role of law, ensuring that your actions align with legal and ethical standards in your personal and professional life is important. Libertarian theory in digital era. Let's look into the relevance of libertarian theory in today's digital world. Digital freedom and privacy. This emphasizes individual liberties, including the right to privacy and freedom from unwarranted government surveillance. Example, the debate around Aadhaar, India's biometric identification system, reflects concerns related to privacy and government's intrusion. Advocates for digital privacy in India draw on libertarian principles, arguing limitations on government access to personal data. Decentralization and blockchain technology favors decentralized structures to avoid concentration of power. Example, cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology offer decentralized alternatives to traditional financial systems. This exemplifies a move towards decentralized systems that operate without a central authority, aligning with the libertarian idea of reducing intermediaries and fostering autonomy. Open source software and collaboration encourages voluntary collaboration and open exchange of ideas. For example, India has seen the growth of open source initiatives and collaborative projects such as the Indian government adoption of the Arogya Setu app source code. Open source principles align with libertarian ideas of voluntary participation and transparency in digital initiatives. Free expression of social media platforms stresses the importance of freedom of expression. For example, social media platforms in India have been spaces for public discourse and expression. While there are debates around content moderation, the general openness of the platforms aligns with the libertarian principles regarding the free exchange of ideas. Crowdfunding and digital content supports voluntary transactions and market-driven content creation. An example for this is crowdfunding platforms enable creators to directly receive financial support from their audience. This reflects the libertarian concept of voluntary transactions and allows content creators to operate independently of traditional gatekeepers. Net neutrality advocates for a level playing field and equal access to information. This can be understood with a small example. The fight for net neutrality principles aims to prevent internet service providers for discriminating against certain types of content or charging different rates for different services, ensuring a more level playing field for all digital content and services. E-commerce and online marketplaces supports free market principles in digital commerce. For example, e-commerce platforms operate in a competitive environment, allowing consumers to make choices based on their preferences. The free market principles inherent in e-commerce align with libertarian ideas of voluntary transactions and market-driven choices. While the digital era has provided new contexts for the application of libertarian principles, it is important to acknowledge ongoing debates and challenges, including concerns about digital monopolies, data privacy, and the impact of social media on public discourse. The intersection of technology and libertarian theory continues to shape discussions on individual freedoms, market dynamics, and the role of government in digital age. Effectiveness of libertarian theory. Libertarian theory places a high value on individual freedom and autonomy. Supporters argue that allowing individuals to make choices about their lives with excessive government interference promotes personal responsibility and self-determination. The free market principles endorsed by libertarian theory are thought to foster economic efficiency and innovation. Proponents argue that when individuals and businesses are free to compete with heavy government regulation, they are more likely to innovate, create new products, and allocate resources efficiently. Libertarians assert that decentralized decision making, whether in economy or in governance, lead to a more responsive and adaptable system. When decisions are made at individual and local level, it is believed that they can better reflect the diverse needs and preferences of people. Libertarian theory underscores the protection of individual rights, including property rights and freedom of speech. Advocates argue that this focus safeguards individuals from arbitrary government actions and promote a just and fair society. Limiting the role of government is seen as advantageous by libertarians who argue that a smaller government is more fiscally responsible. The reduction of government involvement is believed to lead to lower taxes, less bureaucracy and increased efficiency. The emphasis on voluntary actions and cooperation aligns with the idea that individuals are better suited to determine their own interests. Libertarians contend that voluntary exchanges lead to mutual beneficial outcomes and allow the peaceful coexistence of diverse individuals. Libertarians argue that the rule of law is essential for a just society. A legal system that is consistent, transparent and applies equally to all individuals is believed to provide certainty and protect individuals for arbitrary actions. Libertarian theory encourages personal responsibility with the belief that individuals are accountable for their actions. This is seen as fostering a sense of self-reliance and accountability within society. The free market principles of libertarian theory are thought to provide initiatives for entrepreneurship. The prospect of enjoying the rewards of one's efforts, including profit and property ownership, is believed to stimulate innovative and economic development. Libertarians often advocate for strong privacy protections. They argue that limited government surveillance and interference in personal matters is essential for safeguarding individual privacy and maintaining personal freedom. It is important to note that while these advantages are cited by proponents of libertarian theory, there are also criticisms. An overly hands-off approach can lead to issues such as income inequality, inadequate social safety nets, and insufficient environmental regulations. Now let us understand challenges of libertarian theory. Critics argue that an adherence to strict libertarian principles may lead to various societal issues. Here are some commonly cited challenges or disadvantages of libertarian theory. An unfettered free market system, as advocated by libertarian theory, can contribute to increasing income inequality. The concentration of wealth in the hands of few individuals or corporations may result in disparities in economic power and opportunities. A minimal government role, as advocated by libertarian theory, may result in limited social safety nets. Critics contend that without robust social programs, vulnerable populations may face challenges accessing healthcare, education, and other essential services. Libertarian theory's emphasis on limited government intervention may lead to weaker environmental regulations. Critics argue that without adequate environmental oversight, there may be negative consequences for ecosystems and public health. Libertarian theory assumes that markets will efficiently allocate resources, but critics point out instances of market failures and externalities. These can include situations where markets do not adequately account for the cost of negative external impacts such as pollution. In a purely libertarian system, access to essential services like healthcare and education might be contingent on individuals' ability to pay. Critics argue that this approach can lead to disparities in access and outcomes, particularly for marginalized communities. A minimal regulation environment may result in inadequate consumer protections. Critics argue that without government oversight, consumers may face risks related to product safety, fraud, and unfair business practices. Critics also highlight concerns that a free market approach could lead to the concentration of economic power in hands of a few corporations. This concentration may result in monopolies, limiting competition and consumer choice. Critics argue that a strict libertarian approach may not adequately address issues on social justice and civil rights. Without government intervention, marginalized groups may face discrimination and unequal treatment. Certain goods and services that are considered public goods such as infrastructure, defense, law and enforcement may be underprovided in a purely libertarian system. Critics argue that this could compromise the common welfare. Critics assert that a focus on short-term profit maximize in a purely market-driven system, which may lead to decisions that prioritize immediate gains over long-term sustainability and societal well-being. External pressures such as financial market demands may encourage short-sighted strategies. It's important to note that these challenges are not necessarily inherent flaws in libertarian theory, but rather reflect concerns raised by those who question its applicability and certain contexts. Summary: the lesson outlines key principles including individual liberty, self-ownership and limited government intervention. The discussion extends to media, emphasizing free expression and a decentralized landscape. The effectiveness of libertarian theory is discussed, highlighting its potential benefits and addressing criticisms. Challenges include concerns about income inequality, limited social safety nets, weaker environmental regulations, and potential disparities in access to essential services. The analysis underscores the dynamic interplay between libertarian principles and real-world complexities. Thank you. Let's catch up in the next class.